Ladies and gentlemen, in the Court of Public Opinion, I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton is here, whether you are watching us on Facebook or you are listening to us as a podcast, wherever that might happen to be. I hope you enjoy it. I hope if you want to contribute, you do. We're still working on ways in which we can grow the podcast and have guests and phone calls, maybe a bit of music, and it's a project in progress. Tomorrow, of course, in New South Wales, there is a very important election. Both those guys are untried and new at the job. First election for them in the leadership role. But it's interesting, really, because if the Labor Party wins in New South Wales, it'll be the first time in my lifetime that most of the country, state and federal, is Labor. I think there's only one state that is Liberal, and that's Tasmania. It would be interesting to see what happens tomorrow. Good luck to everyone who's participating. Vote early and vote often, as a friend of mine used to say. Before we get into the news of the day and the items of the day, the birthdays. March 24. Steve McQueen, American actor, called the King of Cool. He was called the King of Cool during the 60s. He made lots of great movies. I wouldn't call him a great actor, but he just played this different character. He was in The Magnificent Seven. He was in The Great Escape. A picture of him on his motorbike, taken from, in fact, The Great Escape, is over there. I loved him in a movie called The Thomas Crown Affair. Did you ever see that, Pete?
Yeah.
And he had a blue Rolls Royce, 69 model, I think. A Silver Shadow. Very, very pretty car. And Faye Dunaway was in that, I think. He died in 1980. But he was born in 1930. Census of the British Empire shows that Great Britain ruled 1/5 of the entire world. On this day, 1906, that was proclaimed. Sir John Kerr, Australian politician and Governor-General, who dismissed the Whitlam government, dies at 76. A Labor stalwart for many years, even when he was the Governor of New South Wales, before he was made Governor of the Governor-General. As a lawyer, he was the go-to man for all the unions. Sir John Kerr, 1991. Sir John Kerr dies at 76. Elvis Presley joins the US Army on this day in 1958. His serial number, 533-10761. John Harrison, English carpenter and clockmaker, who invented the marine chronometer to calculate longitude while at sea. Born in Yorkshire, died in 1776 on this day, which was his birthday because he was born in 1693. So without him we wouldn't have latitude and longitude. Elizabeth I, Queen of England and Ireland, and daughter of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, dies at 69. 1603 was the year. Harry Houdini, famous magician, escape artist, born in Budapest in 1874, dies in 1926 of a ruptured appendix. 1905, Jules Verne, the father of science fiction, Around the World in 80 Days, and was it 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea? 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Yes. Jules Verne dies at 77. That was 1905. He was born in 1828. Joseph Priestley, the English chemist and theologian and author, he discovered oxygen and carbonated water. He was born in Bristol in 1733 and dies in 1904. But he was born this day. Bernard Montgomery, 1st Viscount Alamein, British World War II Field Marshal, the African Campaign, D-Day, World War I officer as well. He dies at 88 years of age, 1976. Monty, as he was very fondly called by just about everyone, but people in the army, of course, wouldn't have done that. Richard Widmark, the American actor, Murder on the Orient Express, Judgment at Nuremberg, dies of complications. He was 93, 2008. I don't know, was Richard Widmark in The Magnificent Seven?
Not sure. No.
There was a great cast for The Magnificent Seven. And William Morris, English arts and crafts designer, his work today, he was 1834, he was born. His designs are still popular today, highly sought after. Good design never dies, never has a use-by date. I love this, the Greens and this crazy Get-Up organisation. Now there's a double. They're demanding that prisoners be allowed to vote in the upcoming referendum. You see, if you're in jail on a sentence longer than 3 years, you're not allowed to vote in a referendum. Now, these lefties say that this is awful because it's going to disqualify an awful lot of Aboriginals. We can't have that. Every vote counts, remember? Now, everyone is entitled to be heard. That's true. But there are some people whose drivel shouldn't be listened to, but I don't mind people talking at all. In fact, I encourage it. If the law says, however, you're not eligible to vote, well, you're not eligible to vote. Even if it's to the disadvantage of the argument that you're putting up. Tough cheddar. Oh, by the way, the Irish pub that I was talking to you about the other day, last Friday, in fact, St. Patrick's Day, and it's sort of called the Norwood Hotel, but somebody got hold of me and said, no, it's called the Finn McCool's. If you ever got a chance to see it, if you happen to be in Adelaide or come to Adelaide, it's on the corner of the Parade and Osmond Terrace. And it really is, I think, one of the very last really clever, well-designed Irish pubs. I was listening to a radio news broadcast, I think it was Tuesday, and I was amazed to hear a story about the economy. You know, the Reserve Bank keeps on putting the interest rates up, and they do that to slow the economy, to bring down demand and therefore curb inflation. That's the task. Anyway, this journalist was saying, confidence is at a 3-year low. He was saying it as if it was a bad thing. And then he went on to point out that Australians were either cancelling or delaying purchases of major appliances and spending generally less money. And the angle the journalist was taking was shock horror. This is not good. This is bad. What kind of journalists are we breeding? This is exactly what the Reserve Bank wants. That's why we're going through the pain. They want to reduce the amount and the velocity of money in the economy. That's the story. The pain of higher interest rates is now clearly working. That is something to celebrate, not to write a shock horror story about. I just don't think they know or understand. Inflation is, the textbook meaning of it is too much money chasing too few goods and services. So what do? You make people think twice about opening their wallet or their purse. That's the whole point. Jane asks me here, what do you have against the state Liberal leader David Spears? Nothing. Nothing. I have never met him, but as a Conservative I was just trying to be constructive. If Peter Malinauskus plays his cards right, he will end up being Premier for many, many years to come. David Spears has not been able to lay a glove on him. Even though he's had all the ammunition in the world, in my opinion, ambulance ramping, the government spin, which you may have heard, the government spin, the Premier said, yes, I know we promised to fix the ramping. Fixing the ramping of ambulances does not mean bringing it to an end. My God. Now that is an amazing piece of political spin. Fixing the ramping of ambulances does not mean bringing ramping to an end. Really? Really? What else does it mean? Huh? No opposition leader worth his salt would have let a Premier get away with that. Then there's the cost of living, the broken promises. Jane, I'm sorry, I'm just pointing out the bleeding obvious. I'm not being partisan, I'm a self-confessed conservative. But I just think the Liberals, particularly if there is an election win for Labor tomorrow in New South Wales, have got to be thinking about a whole lot of things. Football great Gary Ablett has joined the clarion cry for compensation. I have been concussed. I have brain damage. Well, it's a terrible diagnosis, and I would hate to get that myself. But no one forced him to play football. No one forced him. People have to take responsibility for their decisions and the consequences that spring from those decisions. The consequences that come from the risks that we take. The AFL and the NRL, well, players are paid up to and over $1 million a year. You take that sort of money and you really do take the risk. But the same thing goes for being a boxer or a jockey or a Formula One racing driver, indeed. Forgive me. Dangerous occupations. I know that in radio, and Pete would know this from his background in music, that you sit in the studio and sometimes you're wearing headphones and they're too loud. And do that for long enough and you will do irreparable harm to your hearing. But it's one of those hazards of the occupation. And if you're up there on a stage and you're playing guitar or you're singing or something like that, the noise is cumulative and destructive upon your audio system. But you must know that and you must take the risk or don't be in the game. The ABC reckons that the Australian Aboriginals were the first pioneers of aviation. Australian Aboriginals, the first pioneers of aviation. Well, when I heard that, I immediately pricked up my ears. This is going to be good. Apparently, the boomerang is the most advanced flying object in the world. You throw it, it comes back. I wonder what they think of the frisbee. I mean, perhaps that is the scientific miracle of the age. I don't know. No mention in the story about Sir Charles Kingsford Smith, Nancy Bird Walton, Bert Hinkler. No, it's official. Reported on the ABC News on Tuesday night, the Aboriginals invented flight in Australia. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I think I have really heard just about everything. They banned smoking commercials on television, you'd be well aware of that. Now, I really think they should ban gambling ads. Why in God's name would they not do that? You know, the smoking is bad for you and will kill you, and it maybe will take 20 years to do it, 40 years to do it. Gambling is no less of an evil, really, particularly if it gets hold of you and you become addicted. Gambling ads on television, there's no earthly reason why they are not banned, and yes, of course, the TV stations will kick up over it. They kicked up over the ban on smoking commercials. But we all have to adjust. And speaking of health, the crisis in healthcare is getting worse. I would like to know how many people are in the public system, the hospital system, because of drugs, including alcohol and all the other stuff that's readily available, temptingly available, all sorts of other lifestyle choices. Are people sick, or are they suffering from what you might call self-inflicted problems, avoidable problems? Sarah Ferguson on 7:30 the other night, fantastic job interviewing the Russian ambassador to Australia. Very good work, really good work. I wish she could do the same sort of interview with Anthony Albanese and the Labor government, but I guess, I sense her heart wouldn't be in it. Anyway, another question I'd like to ask you is Parliament broken? Is this the best way in the democratic system to run the country? If you've ever listened to it, and I don't know, you can on News and Parliamentary, which is a subsidiary station that the ABC puts out. Here in Adelaide, it is in fact 1197, which is the old 5KA, because when you're an AM station and you get an FM licence, you surrender your AM licence, and the government can do other things with it, turn it into a community station or otherwise use it. And they chose to use that for News and Parliamentary. It's really worth listening to. I don't know how many people do, but if you want to hear the essence of, or the purpose I bring this topic up, Question Time is a must. Endless questions that are not answered. Spin and fancy footwork. Ducking and weaving, endless. Questions that are not answered. Then, of course, there are the Dorothy Dixes, which mean absolutely nothing. Somebody from your own party stands up and asks the minister something for which he has had an answer prepared, which is nothing more than an opportunity to promote himself or herself. It's a joke. It's a very expensive joke, and the joke's on us. But I just float that. Maybe there's a better way of doing it. I'm not sure how I feel about this one. Did you see how a group of Nazis or white supremacists, or people who were kind of playing that role, or people who were wanting maybe the media and others to think that's who they were? You never know. They turned up at a meeting in Melbourne. It was an anti-trans meeting. Christians were arguing about transsexuals. Sort of a protest meeting, I guess. You can imagine what the whole thing looked like. Well, there were trans people there were the Christians there, and there were the Nazis there. Up rocked the masked black T-shirted Nazis, complete with that salute. You know the one. The people of Victoria want such behaviour banned. By behaviour, I mean the salute. A Liberal Member of Parliament by the name of Moira Deeming was there. She's effectively been sacked for her participation. Can we go around banning things and sacking people just because we don't agree with what they're saying? Is that democracy? You You can say and do what you like as long as you don't offend me. That kind of democracy doesn't appeal to me, and I don't really think it works. Most Australians would hate what these neo-Nazis stand for or purport to stand for. But everyone, pro-trans, anti-trans, right-wing, extremists, radicals, everyone should be free to speak. Protest. Demonstrate. I don't care. I disagree with what you say, but I will fight to the death for your right to say it. Voltaire. In Sydney, we had the Domain on a Sunday afternoon, where people would get up, literally on a soapbox. And there'd be radicals and communists, and a lot of people cut their teeth, their political teeth, on that sort of forum, where, you know, you said what you felt, and the people around you in the audience said what they felt, and sometimes even threw things. But you sharpened your skills and your rhetoric by doing that. I think most cities would have a speaker's corner where people were welcome to come along and talk about whatever they wanted to talk about. I think those sort of outlets are really valuable and instructive. The Victorians have banned the presentation or appearance of the Nazi swastika, which is a very old symbol. It's steeped in history. I think it's Hindu. I know Rudyard Kipling always used it in his books as his sort of logo. Well, they're going to ban that. I know they've banned an awful lot of military Nazi military memorabilia. But they don't seem to mind, the authorities that is, they don't seem to mind the hammer and sickle. Stalin, I think, killed 20 million people. They don't mind Japanese, the rising sun. They don't mind those symbols of Imperial Japan. They don't mind the Communist Party of China, military memorabilia. All symbols of atrocity. I'm sorry, Mao Zedong was I don't know how many, I couldn't even begin to imagine how many people he killed, murdered, assassinated. Why just the swastika? Why don't we go for the whole kit and caboodle? Am I out of time? Yes. Oh dear, oh dear. No, we'll leave that one till Monday. Look, thank you very much for viewing the Court of Public Opinion, ladies and gentlemen. I do go on, I get carried away. But Pete keeps me in line. We'll be back on Monday. So say it again?
I try.
You try. We will be back on Monday from the garage in the Court of Public Opinion. I'm Jeremy Cordo with Peter Clayton. Believe in yourself and goodbye for now.